First item on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting, our March 26th meeting. Anybody have any questions or concerns or a motion?
Motion to move it.
Motion, Peter, second. Anybody want to second that? Mr. Bergdorf, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So passed. We're going to jump around a fair amount on the agenda tonight. Mr. Ethier has to be somewhere else in a little while, so we're going to jump ahead to item number 18 under current business. Resolution 181, amending the residency requirement policy for employees of Albany County. Mr. Ethier.
Yes, I submit this hope for good support for everybody. I feel very strongly that there's over 300,000 people in our county. I think the positions that are in the legislative office, we can find somebody qualified if we do have to fill them that live in Albany County without going out of the county. But this doesn't affect other departments. The other departments can still ask for waivers and exemptions for the residency law. If they deem their jobs necessary, they can still come to us. But as far as the legislative offices, we can't do that. That's what this is all about. We have to stay within the county. So we can't ask for a waiver for any employee that will go to the county legislature offices.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Mr. Ethier?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kraus.
Why should we have a separate set of rules for the legislature as opposed to the executive branch when it comes to this sort of thing?
Well, like I said, I believe that other offices may need qualified people that we don't have in the county. They're going to go search for them. But to do the jobs in a legislative office, I believe that we can find somebody in Albany County to do that. There's no special skill or trade. You know, there may be lawyers, there's enough lawyers in Albany County that can fill these positions. Senior analysts and secretaries and stuff like that, I think there's qualified people in Albany County. I realize we're separating it, but at least we're just limiting the legislative offices. The residency is still in effect throughout the whole county. It doesn't change that much.
And you need a waiver for that anyway.
You need a waiver. That doesn't change. They would still have to come to us for a waiver. But our office, the legislature office, couldn't even seek a waiver. That's what this is all about.
All right. Mr. Kraus, will you follow up?
No.
Okay. Mr. Bergdorf.
There's language here that says, hereby amended to reflect that the legislature is henceforth prohibited from granting exemptions of any kind of this policy. Are we binding future legislatures? Because that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. You can't tie the hands of a future legislature. If you want to do that, you have to do a charter law change.
To vote on contracts, not that I'm on a committee, but to vote on contracts that may expire past your term?
This is different because once you enter into a legally binding contract, you cannot prohibit the next legislature from changing this law back or granting a variance. I agree with you. I don't think this should happen. I'm suggesting this is the wrong means because you cannot, by law, limit a future elected body. Either of our councils would like to opine on that?
Not exactly the same thing, but I know we do appoint the Social Services Commissioner outside of our term as well as the executive's term.
Terms are one thing. Doing something in perpetuity, according to this, based on what the intent I get here, is that a legislature, 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now, your intent is it could never do this. And I'm suggesting...
Change the
They
law.
can change it.
As you can wind up doing is that, just hypothetically, if say if we decided on downsizing and we voted on downsizing from
Right.
39 down to 37 before the next census, a group of legislators can wind up coming in after the 2019 election.
Okay, so you don't believe that this...
Or decrease and
Okay.
change it, so you can change the law as many times.
That's my point. So a month from now, a year from now,
Correct.
someone can come in and change this, notwithstanding the fact that it says the legislator is henceforth prohibited from granting exemptions.
So you can back in a year from now or 6 months from now and just change it.
Someone can propose another resolution.
Just change it over
Okay.
if you want to do that.
Okay, so, but nobody, just so everybody understands, this is not permanent.
It's permanent until somebody wants to change it.
Okay.
Could you interpret it that the legislature in the text of the reso means this legislature, the one that's sitting now?
Well, I mean, you can do a resolution that limits anything, and I read this to mean people thought that this was a permanent law that could not be changed. So
No,
any resolution with 20 votes could change it.
Correct.
Yeah, we change other
So
things.
if you wanted to actually do a permanent change, you would do it in the charter.
You can do it in the charter and/or keep it the way that you have the votes so that you don't have 21 or 20 people that vote to pull the prohibition out.
Well, that's what I was saying, a charter change would prevent that.
But you can also change it, you can also change the charter.
But then
Charter
people
can-
have to vote on that.
No, the only time that people have to wind up voting on it is if you take or remove powers from individuals. You can have a local law that changes the charter, as long as it doesn't.
You're removing a power from the legislature.
Yeah, this would be a mandatory referendum.
I don't see this becoming a problem in the future, because I don't see why any legislator in their right mind want to hire people out of Albany County.
This is a resolution, not a local law.
Yeah, and I think the resolution establishing the residence requirement was done several bodies ago, right?
Yes.
So this, once again, I'm going to support this. I just want to make sure that people understand that it is not permanent, that it could, by anybody putting together 20 votes, change it.
That's if it passes on the floor, you are correct.
Yeah.
And there's,
So it doesn't, I mean, I guess, should we say that in every law, I guess, that it's permanent until it gets changed? I mean, that's what you're saying here. It seems to be, it appered to add some emphasis that may not exist, because it's no different than any other resolution.
just as a matter of discussion, clarifying that there's sufficient dissatisfaction with the current system of permitting a vote on a waiver on an individual basis, that I feel that we should take this step of prohibiting out-of-county entirely.
No, I don't think that. I think we need the waiver there for certain departments. I think, yeah, I do. I just feel as though the legislature office, us being a political office besides, I think we should stay within the county residents.
Okay, but that raises the question again. Because if it's not permanent and it can be changed with 20 votes, and somebody decides that they want to hire Mary Smith next week from Schoharie, and they have 20 votes, you can still do it, right?
If you have 20 votes and you want to get rid of the residency requirement in its entirety.
No, yeah, you do a waiver, because,
But if you wanted
No,
to
you got
do
waiver.
away, say if you wanted to do away with waivers and do away with the residency requirement, if you had 20 votes, then you got a resolution through committee and through the legislature, you can actually do a resolution to get rid of the entire residency requirement.
but what if you just want to make an exception, and you have 20 votes for it?
Do that.
You do it.
So it isn't permanent.
Nothing's
You
permanent.
said it was.
Okay, well, no, it actually says it is in here, so it said it can't be waived.
Counselor, do you have a point?
I think that the language is strong, and that maybe adds to some of the confusion, because it says, is henceforth prohibited from granting exemptions. And from a legislative perspective, what we're hearing is that, really, it should say perhaps, is henceforth prohibited, except by modification of this resolution, from granting exemptions. Because you really would have to modify this particular resolution to grant an exemption in the future. So maybe we could just add those 2 or 3 words, you know.
I don't believe we should add anything to it. I believe we should let it go the way it is. You want to vote for it, vote for it. If you don't, don't. The fact is that if everybody wants to change that in the future, they'll go through the same procedure I just went through. What this says right now, this gets passed, our majority office and our chairman's office can't hire somebody from outside of the county at this time. If 5 years from now or 6 years from now, a legislative majority leader or a chairman wants to do that, they'll have to revisit this and change it, if the legislature allows it. That's what it means. So you can dance around all you want. Either you want county residents to work in the legislature office, or you don't. So you control all the stuff out of legally all you want. I'm not a lawyer, I just know what's right. And I
Legislator
believe-
Kraus. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Will this impact anyone who currently is on payroll that is not a resident of Albany County?
No, because I don't think
Not
there are anybody in the
required.
legislative office that are outside the county.
But I mean, if there was.
If there
This
was?
would not impact them because they were already,
Well, they'd be frozen, I would imagine.
they were already in.
Yeah, I could jump in on that. I think that would probably be an ex post facto law that we couldn't relate back
Right.
on. So I think that would probably not apply.
Because that goes,
Grandfathered in.
that goes back to the original resolution that when it was passed, I don't know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, if you lived in Albany County, in order to be hired, you have to live in Albany County. If you lived outside the county, you could not get promoted to another job or a higher position unless that you were in Albany County. And those that were living outside of Albany County were able to live outside of Albany County. So it kind of put the bar down from when this was passed 6 years ago, give or take. I don't have the date of the last resolution. So
That's fine.
this is just saying that new hires from Mr. Ethier's standpoint.
Just wanted to check that. Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? Mr. Ethier, I'm guessing you want to move this?
Yes, would you please?
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion,
Mr. Fry, is it a motion to move or positive recommendation or neutral?
Motion to move with the positive recommendation.
Positive recommendation, okay. Is there a second? Plotsky, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Speaker.
Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
All right. Jumping around a little further, back to previous business, item number 13, authorizing an agreement with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services regarding the gun-involved violence elimination GIVE grant. Mr. Marcel, I thought I saw you there.
Mr. Clinton.
How are you?
Mr. Chairman, very well. Yourself?
Good, thanks.
This is a renewal of the grants, 100% state funded. It involves something I believe is going on 4 years now that the legislature has approved. It's been a big success. It's a grant for $117,000. We put a sergeant from the sheriff's office to assist in development of the crime program. The last time was sponsored by, I believe, Ms. McKnight, and we've had some great success. And per the legislature's stipulation, since this is a grant-funded position, the sergeant has been informed, should grant funding not be withdrawn, that the position would be withdrawn as well.
All right, that seems to answer everything. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Marcel? All right, how about a motion then? Mr. Bergdorf, second. Mr. Kraus, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, continuing to bounce around to new business, item number 23.
Oop. The wrong way I did.
Gotta keep you on your toes with those
Yeah, that's right.
devices.
His fingers gonna get a lot of work.
Authorizing an agreement with InfoQuick Solutions, Inc. regarding an indexing, cashiering, and scanning system for the county clerk's office. The
Thank you,
county
Mr.
clerk is here.
Chairman,
Welcome.
members of the committee, I appreciate being here tonight. This is a contract extension. We've been with InfoQuick Solutions as our vendor for the past 3 years now. They've done a dynamic job with updating the technology in the county clerk's office as far as our scanning, cashiering, and indexing. And I believe many of you who probably have used my system since we've gone on board and know exactly what I'm talking about. So in the contract, in the original resolution and contract, there was the stipulation to renew the contract for 1 additional year for 2 years. So this year, the contract needs to be renewed in June, so that's why I'm here now in April, so that hopefully it'll go before the full legislature in May, and we can get them back on board for another year.
Well, thank you for getting that here timely. Is it a mutual renewal,
Yes,
and they're good with moving forward?
yes, they actually sent us the paperwork to do the agreement.
All right, excellent. Any questions for the county clerk?
This is,
Mr. Kraus?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the second one-year renewal?
No, this is the first.
First one-year renewal.
Yeah, the contract stipulated 2 one-year renewals, this is the first.
This is the first.
All right, so I would be back to see you again next April.
Hopefully before. All right, any other questions? How about a motion? Ms. Potsky is second. Mr. Kraus, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Item number 24, authorizing the submission of a grant application and agreement with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services regarding the aid to prosecution program.
Good evening. So we are here tonight to seek to apply and accept funding for the aid to prosecution program through the Department of Criminal Justice Services. This grant has been received by the county longer than I've been employed by the county, so over 10 or 11 years now. We've gotten it every year. This grant funds the prosecution of violent and repeat felony offenders. So this grant funds half of our chief deputy salary, in addition to half of the chief of the major offense unit, who handles the repeat violent felonies offenders that we have come through the office.
Okay, excellent. 100% state funding.
100% state funded.
All right, and the prosecutors are aware that if the grant goes away in the future,
Yes, they
we
are.
can do.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Any questions for the DA's office? All right. How about a motion? Mr. Mayo, second. Ms. Platsky, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, let's go back to numerical order now. Item number 1 on previous business, resolution number 79. This is on Mr. Signoracci's and my contractor apprenticeship program legislation. Ralph, do you want to give any update?
Certainly. Had some outreach with some unions, with the chair's office. We're also in the midst of trying to combine some language from the old law into this, making sure that everything is something that all parties are happy with, that inquired, dealing with the apprenticeship program by itself. And we're going to actually table this for a month so that we can get a new draft with the amended language. We're just kind of sifting through that as we speak, so we should have a new draft for next month's committee meeting. So table at request of us.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Fine, just a quick question. I know you're very concerned about the WMBE issue.
Yes.
You are content going forward with separate legislation and addressing that elsewhere?
Well, I'd like to discuss that with you further.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the one thing that we want to try to do is keep the apprenticeship because the original, after reviewing the original resolution, it was apprenticeship. So, and I have no problem working on something simultaneously for MWBE requirements for women-owned and minority-owned businesses, but I want to keep try to keep them in two separate silos if we can, because I don't want to make one too complicated by trying to merge everything in. So the apprenticeship is, pretty much going to stay in the apprenticeship silo, and moving forward, I have no problem with starting dialogue with those. I know had some interaction and conversation with Mr. Bergdorf, and if you're interested in, trying to draft or create legislation for MWBE, MBE requirements, I would be more than happy to go on some sort of legislation for that as well.
Great. Well, I've been discussing with some of the elder members as well about potential MWBE policy changes. If there's a way to do these separately, if there's a way to pass this so it doesn't negatively impact MWBEs that support it, I'd like to discuss with both you and Mr. Clenahan,
Absolutely.
This legislation more to see if that's possible, because I am concerned about the
Walls
potential
that-
negative impact on
Well,
MWBEs.
There's currently the threshold of $250,000 that's on the books. I know one of the things that we wanted to include on that is the education, as well as possibly dropping the threshold. The reason why I started off with the 100,000 is that this body starts off in any contract that's more than 100,000. This body winds up taking up. So it was kind of that was the starting point from where it's at 250. So it doesn't need to be, 100,000. Maybe we're such a wonderful bunch of diverse individuals, it could come up to be $103,495.37 is the threshold. So, that's just one of those things. But we're, if we can try to keep this based on, because the original was pretty much just on the apprenticeship program, we're going to try to modify it, bring it up to speed, and talk about lowering the thresholds. Because some of the other, reasoning is that if they're splitting contracts that are, at or around 100,000, we want to make sure that, that doesn't happen, because there has been some concerns for that by some of members of the union.
I understand that. I also understand the concern about companies who don't really have legitimate apprenticeship programs and are passing them off, and I know you put something in there related to that. My concern is just that I've heard from many people that the current $250,000 threshold is a barrier for MWBEs, so, because of that, I'm concerned about lowering. Doesn't mean I'd be opposed to it. Maybe we can work, discuss this more and work something out so that we wouldn't have these negative impacts, but it's definitely a concern of mine.
All right, lean to working that for next month. Mr. Bergdorf.
Mr. Chairman, I share Mr. Fine's concerns, but I think they're broader than that. In this county, about 80% of the construction industry is non-union. And what you are essentially doing for folks in the labor movement is saying everyone who is a non-union contractor need not do business with Albany County. So I think there are minority contractors. I think there are women-owned contractors. I think there are veteran-owned contractors. And I think there are real small business people that the way they get their toehold and the way they get to the new job is when they split a painting contract and they can do half a floor at 112 State Street. And they're exempt from these MWBE considerations. And if you drop this fee, you are ultimately hurting 80% of the people in this county. I've asked the county executive's office now for 3 months for a list of all of our competitively bid contracts, both above $250,000, between $100,000 and $250,000 and $100,000, and under $100,000. Who is it that we're afraid of? Who is it? What small contractor is getting their first job that we need to make sure they never get another one? Because that's in actuality what you're doing. And you're doing this for big contractors who are out of town, who don't have offices in this county. And you're shutting out businesses in Cohoes and in Guilderland and in Colony that do business and have people who live in our community. And that's a value judgment that you make. But we should know what it is that we're doing. And I personally don't want to see these split apart, because if you're going to lower the threshold, you need to be able in the same breath to say, and these are the people that we're going to continue to let do business in Albany County who are not union. Because that's in essence what you're saying here. If you're non-union, the door is closed. No other municipality has this $100,000 threshold. City of Albany.
City of Albany does.
100,000? I thought they were 750,000, I was told. Colony is 750,000.
City of Albany passed 100,000, I believe, in December.
Okay, well, not what I was told by someone in the administration, but okay. Maybe I've been wrong before, so that's a distinct possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor this too much because we are tabling this.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think these two have to be addressed together. Because if you are going to reduce the threshold, let's figure out who in your benevolent wisdom you're going to allow to do business with Albany County. Because what you're doing by dropping the threshold is saying, no, we don't want you. And that happens to be minority business, women business, and small business. And you're giving all this benefit to the folks who are from out of town and outside of this county.
I definitely want to talk more about that. I would like to know a few facts going forward. Of the 80% you mentioned, how many of them actually, the non-union actually do have apprenticeship programs? Because I believe some do. I'm not sure if the larger contractors are all out of the area, and I'm not sure that the smaller or even WMBE contractors are all in the area. So I think those are some subtleties we should figure out
If I may,
and know what we're talking about. Ms. Plotsky.
At the last meeting, we asked for data on the number of contracts awarded, who they went to, and what price breaks, if you will. So I appreciate seeing that data. Whoever can respond to
Did that
that.
request go to the council office or to the executive?
It was in this meeting that I believe it was understood that those putting forth this resolution would be
I don't think I was sitting up
providing
here
that
last meeting.
No, you're sitting over there.
Yes,
You're sitting over
I was
there.
out with you.
Ralph was talking.
And it was, I was led to believe that the county executive's office and the purchasing department was putting that information together.
Yes, I am concerned about small business and want the data before making decisions.
Gotcha.
And the other thing I would like is when this does come back, that we can have an underlined version with the existing law, because there were also some concerns about which contracts this applied to, and there's new language in here that I don't know what it means, and we had this discussion before about, contracts and assumed contracts or implied contracts, and I'd like to know, either have a definition of those terms and to see what we're actually doing.
I will commit to getting you marked up before the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item number 2, local law A. This is Mr. Miller's local law prohibiting the sale of tobacco and nicotine delivery products in Albany County pharmacies. Where's Mr. Miller? We had a public hearing, it went well. I assume you want to move it. Did you want to address any of the questions that came up at the last meeting, or I think most people have heard the answers? Okay, you ready to just move forward? All right, unless there's any questions from Mr. Miller, does anyone have a motion? Mr. Fine?
Motion to move forward with a positive recommendation.
All right, is there a second? Second? Mr. Mayo, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Mr. Chairman, I have to abstain from this vote
yes.
because of conflict.
All right, please note Mr. Krause's abstention.
I'm going to vote to put it out, but I am not a supporter at this point in time, and I'd like that to be on the
I
record.
believe you can vote without rec.
Then I'll vote without recommendation.
You know, the motion is for
A favor.
positive, favorable recommendation.
Okay.
Just point of clarification, the motion was made for a positive recommendation?
Then I
So you
vote
can-
no.
I actually disagree with that. At least in the state legislature, you can vote without recommendation even on a positive.
That hasn't been the policy for this county, but
Well, we have the votes either way carried forward. Why don't we let the record reflect that Mr. Bergdorf is
Undecided,
voting to move
call
the item,
again.
but is not voting in
Okay.
favor. Is not voting in support with a positive recommendation. All right. Item number 3, resolution number 126, Mr. Higgins, I believe, is being tabled.
he's not present.
All right. Item number 4, resolution number 128, which is with item number 9, local law C. So the sponsor on that, Mr. Bullock.
I'm the sponsor, I'm the new sponsor.
Yes, from what I understand, there are a couple small technical changes you want to make to the local law itself, but the reso for the public hearing is ready to go.
The, under section 3 definitions, letter M and Q, section 4 is the incorrect section, should be section 5 in both paragraphs, so if you look under M and Q, section 4 of this local law and section 4 of this local law should be there instead of section 5, okay?
Okay, excellent.
Technical.
Hang on a second. You said it was number 3? 4.
This is just for the
Well,
public
it's
hearing,
for the
right?
public hearing. Okay,
Public hearing.
no problem.
Okay, so we're going to amend you'll amend the local law, but we're ready to move forward with the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Just on the public hearing reso at this point. All right, is there a motion?
We would need a motion to amend it.
Oh, yes, we do need to first amend the resolution in the materials there from April 24th to May 29th, the date of the public hearing. Is there a motion for that? Ms. Spotsky, a second. Mr. Fine, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moving forward with the reso, public hearing reso for May 29th. Is there a motion? Ms. Spotsky, a second. Is there a second to move the public hearing reso? Mr. Mayo? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? All right, so we'll move the public hearing reso and the local law item will be tabled. Item number 6, resolution number 132, amending the Albany County Legislative Rules of Order pertaining to the Special Committee on Elder Care. And this is joined with item number 3.
We skipped number 5.
Oh, did I skip 5? Apologize. Item number 5, Resolution 131, which goes with item number 12, local law F. And we have a new, I believe Mr. Drake, you're here. You have a couple amendments on this. Yes. Okay, we've got a few copies. We want to pass those around. You want to talk about the amendments?
We have the amendments broken out.
It's just on the list. Yep, it's just those 2 things.
Actually, it's not.
I did, thank you.
Same thing.
Okay, if you haven't been familiar, please speak up or ask questions, but we'll cut right to the amendments to the resolution or the local laws originally proposed. If you go to the second page, section 3, under paragraph D and then II, this clarifies that the Ethics Commission may inquire about any other candidates for the position in question, or the other candidates, that for the position in question, and require that said candidates' resumes be provided. This basically opens up the ability of the Ethics Commission to take into account any other candidates that might be on the table. An additional amendment that we made was under section 4 on the last page, pursuant to some of the discussions about other resolutions that have been in front of us today. This local law shall not apply retroactively, so therefore any individuals who were hired by the County of Albany before the effective date of this local law shall not be impacted. So answering the question I'm sure is on everyone's lips, if there was anybody here who fell into the category of these folks affected, they would not be affected retroactively.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on these for Mr. Drake?
Just a quick
Mr. Kraus.
thought. For instance, if someone were hired previously and this language took care of them, if they were separated from service due to whatever, if they were to come back into service, would they then be prohibited from doing so?
Well, I didn't write anything in here, but I can tell you my intent. If it was a separation due to some typical job, workplace type thing, a leave, an illness, et cetera, not a termination or a non-renewal of appointment, it would not affect them. Of course, if at that time said benefactor was no longer an elected official, it also wouldn't matter. So,
thank you.
Mr. Fine.
Mr. Drake, I have a question. Does this law address the issue of elected officials being able to be appointed to positions? If, for example, an elected official steps down from being an elected official and is appointed to be a commissioner?
no, this does not address it.
This does not talk to the...
No.
Okay.
So Mr. Drake, if
Dave's
someone
working
is
on that.
terminated from,
You're working on
say,
that.
the sheriff's office, would they fall under this if they've sought employment at
Well,
executives
again,
or
the
controllers?
exempt positions are not covered by them. So any of those folks are not.
Okay.
There are some, we have some definitions here that could be applied here ubiquitously. For example, deputies authorized to act generally on behalf of their principal. So perhaps a confidential secretary or other appointed assistant. But anybody who falls under civil service type positions are exempted, and that's not the intent of this law.
Okay.
So exempt people are not covered?
If you read under...
Opposite.
They are covered.
If you read under section,
All right.
section
I
3.
see why you made an exception. Thank you.
All right, so, are any other questions? Mr. Drake, do you want to move forward with the public hearing, or do
I
you
would
want
like
to give a
to.
little time to absorb this, or?
I'd like to move forward.
Okay, before we take that motion, Mr. Mayo, you had a
I
question?
just wanted to be noted as a co-sponsor of this.
Okay, please note Mr. Mayo is
I'd like to be a
co-sponsor.
co-sponsor too.
Bergdorf as well. Ms. Potsky as well. All right, how about a motion on the public hearing, Rizzo? Mr. Bergdorf, second. Mr. Mayo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so as moved forward. And local law F, number 12. We did not amend the date. Thank you for Brandon for catching me. Before we do that, we need a motion to amend the date of the public hearing, Rizzo, from April 24th to the 29th. Is there a motion? May. To May 29th. Mr. Bergdorf, a second.
May 29 or 7?
I will defer to council on this question.
Oh, this is March.
It's the third Tuesday
May 29, right?
That's
at
when it was
7:15.
It's when it first came, like February. So.
March.
Yeah.
May 29th. So a second to amend the public hearing to May 29th. Is there a second on that motion? Mr. Bergdorf, the first. Anybody want to second that? Mr. Mayo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now let us take a motion to move the public hearing, Rizzo, as amended. Mr. Bergdorf, can I go again?
Yes,
A
please.
second. Mr. Mayo, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And we will table local law F pending the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Strickland.
Let's do it all the way through.
Now the one I was anxious to get to, item number 6, resolution number 132, and this is related to number 7, resolution number 133. Mr. Ignacy, do you want to address either of those?
Actually, I'll address both. Spoke with the deputy chairperson, Ms. Willingham, on the resolutions, and try to explain to everyone that after talking, they're two separate resolutions. The first resolution that Ms. Willingham has is that she wants to take elder care, and she will be changing the name of the elder care, hypothetically aging or senior services, something of that nature, possibly going forward. And it's going to be the programming of what goes on in the Department of Aging. Our county Department of Aging will fall under this umbrella. And the second thing is that the programming at the Albany County Nursing Home will fall under this umbrella. So it's more the policy, the governance, and that the social service, that the aging committee will wind up having. So right now, the elder care was created for the whole privatization, CON of the nursing home, and it was kind of like ad hoc and was only formed for that sole purpose. So she wants to make it a permanent committee to be able to deal with senior services, senior programs, Meals on Wheels, things along that line that affect the senior population of and those are, 50 and over, countywide. So she's going to be making some amendments to this, and she asked for it to be tabled, but pretty much hers is going to be on the policy of and the governance of the programming under aging in at the nursing home facility. So that's Wanda's, Ms. Willingham's, which is Resolution 132. And I'm going on as a co-sponsor to support that for programming. My resolution, which is 133, is trying to take the bricks and mortar, so to speak, of the court facility, which is was a committee that hasn't been utilized in recent years, as well as the nursing home facility, the bricks and mortar, and the civic center, and merge those together with Public Works and create one various committee that deals with the bricks and mortar and our OGS related entities, kind of grouping everything that's deals with one another, our Public Works and our OGS, under one umbrella. So our buildings, our department that deals with the highway, that's all going to wind up being merged under one umbrella of a county facilities committee. So that is how we devised it to wind up saying, one's on policy, the other one's on kind of like bricks and mortar of that, and folding in public works, which is an existing committee. And I'm working with council to wind up making those changes for next month. So I also...
So you're doing away with the Public Works Committee?
Correct. Public Works, figure bricks and mortar, move everything together, Public Works, Civic Center, court facilities, everything's all gonna wind up being under our own umbrella as county facilities in OGS. Haven't come up with the exact name. I will wind up...
Is that in the charter? What the jurisdiction of the committees is?
It's in the rules. We're amending the
No, I
rules.
think, is there something in the charter that says what the standing committees of the legislature are?
Yes, council, take a look at
No.
that.
Rules of order. Rules of order.
Rules of order? Okay.
Rules of order question.
Okay.
Arnest?
I'd have to take a look at it. I know it's in the rules of the legislature, but the way I heard it, it indicated, at least it sounded to me like you're merging those others into the Public Works Committee, you're not
Moving
eliminating.
everything into a new name, county facilities. So there will be no more Public Works, there will be no more Civic Center, there will be no more court facilities. It'll all be under county facilities. So it's moving them all under a county facilities.
Ms. Potsy, good question.
What's broken that we're trying to fix with this change?
Well, there's a lot of committees, and we're just trying to streamline them. My right as a legislature, not to say that anything is fixed, when it was elder care and you had the whole notion of, before I spoke with Ms. Willingham, you had various committees that don't wind up meeting, but seeing as those committees were dealt with a brick and mortar type of structure, and then you have another bricks and mortar type of structure, which is the Civic Center. Well, you can wind up grouping bricks and mortar, and if you're grouping bricks and mortar and types of facilities, and then you say, okay, well, the facility, we also have, you know, the sewer district, which is under Public Works. We have the hockey facility, which is under Public Works. Those are all bricks and mortar type of things, so if you try to group the bricks and mortar and you group the committees together, you can one committee as opposed to having 3 or 4. And the agendas on most of the other committees are either non-existent and or relatively nil, so it's not like you're throwing a lot of work on one committee.
What's the bricks and mortar about elder care?
Bricks and mortar, when they created the elder care, as you remember, was all about the CON and the privatization of the nursing homes. That was it. What Ms. Willingham was, because my original intent was to remove the elder care committee from our rules and also to remove the court facilities from our rules. So that being said, there's a function of the bricks and mortar of the building, and that was kind of the defining thing that she says she was not, she was more into the programming. And I said, I was more or less into the bricks and mortar. If there's something about the nursing home, the facility itself, if there's something about the hockey rink, that everything should be under one kind of general service type of committee that pretty much deals with, you know, whether it's bonding, which would go to audit and finance, but if there's things that have to deal with any building that we have or any of the buildings that we have would all belong under one with our public works. So it's kind of grouping everything together. You know, not to say that the court facilities is going to wind up opening up anytime soon, not to say that, you know, there's going to be anything else going on, going through the whole new look at the nursing home. So it's more or less kind of trying to branch everything and then bring it in, kind of streamlining our committees.
All right, so next month we should have final versions of 132 and 133.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll table both those per the sponsors.
One quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Very quick.
Mr. Signorazzi, why not do both as one resolution?
Well, Ms. Willingham wants to deal with the policy of those 2 areas. So why would you be dealing with the policy of say, aggregate meals for our seniors when you're going to be talking about CHIPS funding. So they're kind of like two separate things. So this would be, the policy she wants to remove from social services and kind of bring it on under hers is the population for the seniors are aging, and there's more seniors that she feels that there needs to be a focus group from the legislature that deals primarily with the aging population as well as the services that are provided, the grants that are provided, that falls under one umbrella for aging.
So in the process, though, elder care would be eliminated. as a
Elder
committee.
care, it would be eliminated, or the name would change.
Change it.
Name change, and it would have that. So it's either going to be a name change or a creation of a new committee. She hasn't got there. I think a name change is probably easier.
Okay.
And roads and bridges would be under the committee.
Correct.
All right, excellent. So let's,
Mr. Chairman, I'm just looking at the resolution, it's indicating there's modifications, but there's nothing underlined or bracketed, so we can't tell
Oh,
exactly.
these were just amendments that we talked about over the last 2 days. They haven't made it to the, we're working on that for the underlying version for everyone to wind up seeing for discussion for the committee meetings in May. So these are all changes that are going through, and it was kind of trying to explain that there were two separate things because originally as written, they were competing. We were trying to get to two different places, and they were written as competing resolutions, but they were not competing when you started to peel back the layers on what the original intent was for each of direction that we wanted to go.
Thank you.
all right, excellent. Let's move on to the next items. Items 8, 10, and 11, which are local laws B, D, and E, are all tabled pending public hearings tomorrow night. That gets us to item number 14. We already tabled 9. We already tabled 9 and 12. That'll get us to current business. Items number 14, which pairs with 19, 15, which pairs with 20 are mine. I will table those. Item
Wait a minute,
numbers.
14,
14 is the resolution, 19 is local law G.
so you're tabling both those?
Yes. And
14
I will also
and-
table 15 and 20.
15 and 20, okay.
All right. Item number 16, which goes with item number 21, local law I, is resolution 179. That is Mr. Miller and Ms. Plotski's proposal on sprinklers, I believe. I'm going to recommend we table this and without a lot of discussion tonight, because I do think we have an initial question about possible state and possible federal preemption to address first, and I would ask our councils to take a look at that question. Unless you guys want to give a brief summary of what we're talking about, I think that is an initial question that needs to be addressed.
But there is no preemption on state level because they didn't put it into the code. So we do have to go back before the codes council to get them to approve this.
Okay.
And that's understood.
Okay.
We'd like to move it forward to public hearing. We do have more sponsors on too.
Okay, as long as you understand that if there are substantial changes based on any preemption issues, even federal ones, you might have to have a second public hearing.
That's
Okay, if that's the case, is anybody?
There's one change on here that didn't make it in the draft on the title. It should read, the last line should be taken off the title where it says substantial additions within Albany County. So it should just read residential fire sprinklers, new construction within Albany County.
Okay, sounds good. Does anybody want to make a motion for the public hearing? Excuse me. As Brandon has reminded me, a motion to amend the date of the public hearing first to May 29th. Is there a motion to amend the date? Ms. Plotski, is there a second? Mr. Fine, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, now the resolution itself. Is there a motion? Again, Ms. Plotski, is there a second? Anybody want to second that? Mr. Mayo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so moved.
Brian, can you put me on that, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, that gets us to item number 17, Mr. Fine, which is also number 22, Resolution 180 and Local Law J. What would you like to do with this, Mr. Fine?
I'd like to move forward on the public hearing. If anyone has any questions on the law, I can happy to answer those.
Okay. Anybody want to ask any questions right now, or just move forward with the public hearing and address those questions later? Okay. Is there also a potential preemption issue here?
Not that I don't believe so. Of course, if I'm incorrect and there is, we'll have to address that, but I don't believe there is a preemption issue.
Isn't
None that I can find.
Isn't most fuel storage under federal standards?
Well, I know that rail, moving fuel by rail is under federal standards. It's not to my knowledge that storage of fuel is under federal standards. Do you know? Have you heard otherwise?
I've heard it mentioned as a possibility. I don't see an issue if you want to move forward with the public hearing and do a little research on that question and maybe reach out to our councils and then just to verify that.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to move forward with the public hearing. Happy to look at any potential issues going forward.
Okay. All right, so for item number 17, is there a motion to amend the public hearing date once again to May 29th? Ms. Blansky, is there a second? Mr. Fine, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the underlying resolution 180 for a public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'd like to go on that one too.
Mr. Bowick to be added, Ms. Potsky, the motion, is there a second? Mr. Fine, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Counselor, was that our final item?
Thank you, John.
You kind of lost track. And the underlying local laws, these are all our table. The last thing to mention, Amanda was good enough to bring some extra financial disclosure forms here tonight, which are coming up on the deadline. If anybody wants to grab those, they're right here.
What's the deadline?
Deadline is May 15th. May 15th. All right. So motion to adjourn. So moved. Second, all in favor? Opposed? All right, so adjourned.